Man finds birth mother and discovers his family's amazing past. Air Force Colonel Bruce Hollywood always knew he was adopted. His Asian features didn't match his parents, who were of European descent. His parents had told him openly about adopting him in Japan in the 1960s. Even though his adoptive mother encouraged him, he never wanted to find his birth parents. That changed after a major event in his mid-40s. This event led him on a worldwide search into surprising discoveries he had never imagined. This is the story of Air Force Colonel Bruce Hollywood. If it weren't true, you might think it was too unbelievable. One early morning in 2005, Colonel Bruce Hollywood was getting out of his car in the Pentagon parking lot, as he did every morning, when suddenly he felt a sharp pain in his chest. As he fell to the ground, he thought, "This is where it ends." Lying on the ambulance's stretcher, its sirens blaring as it pushed through traffic towards the hospital, Bruce realized he had only two regrets in life. The first was that he wouldn't be able to help his son get into college, and the second was that he had never made the effort to speak to and thank the Japanese woman who had given birth to him and quickly thereafter gave him away for adoption. Colonel Bruce Hollywood had been adopted as a baby by an American couple stationed in Japan in the early 1960s. They believed they could offer him a better life than his mother could provide. Bruce grew up as their son without spending much time thinking about his biological parents. Before his heart attack, he said he had never felt that something was missing. His parents were amazing, and he never felt the need to reflect on his adoption. "I always knew I was adopted because I had Asian features, and my father was Irish and my mother was Norwegian," Bruce said in an interview with the Washington Post. "They always told me we picked you out special, so you're even more special than everyone else," he reminisced. Following his heart attack, he felt compelled to get in touch with his birth mother. However, this proved to be more difficult than he initially thought. As soon as Bruce recovered, he set out to look for her, carefully planning how to approach her, wanting to be discreet, thinking she might have never told anyone she had given birth to a son. All he wanted to do was tell her how great his life had turned out and express his gratitude for bringing him into the world. He wanted to write, "I lived the best life ever. I'm a colonel in the United States Air Force. I've had beautiful children. Life is really good." But as the saying goes, life is what happens when you're busy making plans, and Bruce's actual encounter with his mother was very different from how he had envisioned it. At first, Bruce turned to the Japanese embassy, providing them with what little information he had about his birth mother, but they were unable to help him. The United States Embassy in Tokyo was stumped too, and after he hired a private detective who returned empty-handed, Bruce was just about ready to give up. "I thought, you know what, I've tried. I've made all the effort that I can make. It's just unfortunate," Bruce told the Washington Post. But a chance encounter at an airport bar would soon change all that. A few months after the private eye told Bruce there was nothing he could do, Bruce found himself at Dulles International Airport on a flight to Germany for a military conference. While he waited for his flight, he sat down at a bar at the terminal. Sitting across from him was another military man going to the same conference, but their similarities didn't end there. The man was Admiral Harry Harris, whose mother was also Japanese. Today, he is commander of the U.S. forces in the Pacific and has been nominated to be ambassador to South Korea. They started sharing stories. I told him the story about having the heart attack and wishing I could find my mother, and he said, "Bruce, I can help you." And I said, "You know what, you're an admiral and all, but you can't. I've been to the embassy. I've tried this, and you just can't help," he recalled. But Admiral Harris insisted, "You know, Bruce, seriously, I can help." Hollywood gave Admiral Harris what little information he had, and the two men went on their way. Bruce didn't foster any serious expectations, but 10 days later, he was sitting at his desk in the Pentagon when he received a phone call. On the other end of the line was someone from the Japanese embassy. "Colonel Hollywood," the voice said, "we're really pleased to tell you that we found your mother, Nogo Auchi." I said, "Oh my gosh, this is wonderful. You've got to help me start writing this letter, and I want it to be accurate, and I want it to be culturally sensitive, and you've got to help me." But the Japanese embassy employee had other plans. "There's not going to be a letter," he said. "She's going to call you at this number in 10 minutes, and she doesn't speak English. Good luck." Bruce, accustomed to military pressure, felt unprecedented anxiety as he prepared to speak with his birth mother. After sending frantic emails, he found an interpreter for a conference call. When the call connected, he heard his mother crying and began expressing his happiness, but she replied, "I'm sorry, I don't speak English." Listening to her sobs through the interpreter, Bruce grew overwhelmed and demanded to know what was happening. The interpreter revealed that it was the day before his mother's 65th birthday, and her lifelong dream was to reunite with him. She had never married because she believed there was only room in her heart for one man, him. The interpreter also shared that Nobu owned a restaurant named Bruce. Stunned, Bruce wondered how she knew his name. It turned out that his adoptive mother had visited Nobu before returning to America, giving her a photo of baby Bruce and sharing his name. 10 days later, Bruce traveled to Japan to meet Nobu, discovering the truth about his adoption and forming a close bond with her over the following years until her passing in 2009. Nobu told Bruce she wanted to come visit him, but Bruce wouldn't hear of it. I said, "No, it's my mother. I will go see her." 10 days after the first phone call between them, Bruce landed in Shizuoka, Japan, his mother's hometown. It turns out that his fears had been for naught. Everything she had told him, down to the restaurant's name, was true. It was there that Nobu told Bruce the story of his birth and adoption. Nobu had gotten pregnant with Bruce after a romance with an American soldier from South Carolina. The two had planned on getting married, but the man had been shipped back to the States before their paperwork had gone through. He promised he would call her right away, but didn't, and when Nobu finally received a call from him months later, she didn't want anything to do with him, thinking he couldn't be trusted. As a result, he never knew she was pregnant. Nobu's father, a fisherman, offered to support her and her newborn son, but Nobu knew that raising a mixed-race child in Japan would be challenging. Consequently, she chose to give him up for adoption. Edward and Eleanor Hollywood, stationed in Japan with the U.S. Air Force, adopted him. During Bruce's first visit, Nobu shared an old photograph given to her by Eleanor years ago. Feeling the weight of lost time, Nobu was anxious when Bruce went for a run on his first evening. To ease her worry, he decided to run early the next morning, only to find Nobu waiting for him in a tracksuit. They quickly established a routine, with Nobu biking alongside Bruce during his runs. Over the next 3 years, Bruce frequently visited Japan, and Nobu came to Washington to see him. He learned Japanese, while she took English lessons, and they grew very close. Tragically, Nobu passed away from a heart attack in 2009, but their reunion profoundly impacted Bruce's identity. It gave him a newfound sense of pride in his Japanese heritage, leading him to become active in the Japanese-American community, serving on various boards. Reflecting on his journey, Bruce stated, "The last 12 years, I finally became a Japanese-American." Searching for his biological father, while Bruce's adoptive parents had information about his birth mother, his American father was a mystery. Bruce didn't feel the need to track him down. Grateful for his relationship with Nobuuchi, his birth mother, he was unaware that his biological father had disappeared despite promising to stay in touch. The last time Nobu saw Bruce's father was in 1959 when he was stationed in Japan. They had planned to marry, but he was ordered back to the US, cutting their relationship short. He promised to call her immediately but only reached out months later, which Nobu refused to accept, distrusting him. Around this time, Nobu discovered she was pregnant, but the child's father never knew he was about to become a parent. That was the last time Nobu heard from him. After their reunion, Nobu gave Bruce a note with Lois Basel written on it, saying it was his father's name. Bruce took the note but didn't intend to contact a man who didn't know he existed and had seemingly abandoned his mother. Curious about his Caucasian ancestry, Bruce had his DNA tested through Ancestry.com. The results showed East Asian ancestry on one side and Western European ancestry, including Ireland and Spain, on the other. A notification indicated a 100% chance this person was his cousin, with the last name Bazar, differing by one letter from the name his mother had given him. As Bruce clicked through the results, he suddenly understood that the Japanese often confuse the letters R and L, and as a result, his mother had misspelled his biological father's family name. Despite his previous misgivings, Bruce decided to reach out to the person on the site and asked if they had a relative who had served in Japan in the 50s. The woman who responded to him said that, yes, there was an uncle. I said, "Okay, I think that's my father," Bruce recounted. The woman paused for a second and then informed Bruce that the uncle had passed away, but he has a son, she continued. It didn't take long for the woman to give Bruce her uncle's son's number, and as soon as he got it, he called, but there was no answer, and Bruce couldn't leave a message. A few minutes later, Bruce received a call from Louis Bazar, who confirmed he was Louis Jr. and that his father was Louis Sr. Bruce shared his story, revealing that he was born before Louis Sr. traveled to Japan. Louis Jr. explained that his mother had died during childbirth, making Louis Sr. a widower when he was stationed in Japan, alleviating Bruce's fears about his father's fidelity. However, Bruce wondered why Louis Sr. took so long to contact Nobu after returning home, which had led her to distrust him. Louis Jr. suggested that his father was likely preparing his family for Bruce's arrival and reacquainting himself with his son. After being rejected by Nobu, Louis Sr. gave up on love, having faced a difficult childhood and losing his first wife. Despite this, Louis Sr. had not grown cold. He left behind a photo album of a young Japanese woman, who Louis Jr. realized was Nobu. Both had dedicated their lives to their children. When Bruce asked Louis Jr. if he would like to have a younger brother, Louis smiled and replied that he had always wanted a sibling.